All right, everybody, welcome back in here to Let's Talk Live on the LTL Media channel. It is Thursday night, March 20th, and we have a lot to talk about this evening. We're going to try to cram in as much as we can, and I wanted to bring on some special friends tonight. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit. It was spicy, very spicy back and forth in court today. I saw David Yannetti really fired up today, kind of clapping back, and it was a lot of clapping back and forth. We'll talk about that. Obviously, we're going to talk about Trooper Proctor today, or how about this? I keep making that mistake. He is no longer Trooper Proctor. He is now just Michael Proctor. We're going to hear a little bit about the third-party culprit. We're going to discuss ARCA as well. We had some snippiness just before the break with AJ and Auntie Bev. And we may get into the Karen Reed docu. I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's watched it. It kind of is what it is. We'll talk a little bit tonight about Hank Brennan possibly trying to weaponize TB, Turtle Boy, against Karen Reed. And I want to get into John O'Keefe's phone. We've been hearing a lot more about that lately. And we're gonna get into a lot of these topics. But I know I'm very excited to hear Todd McGee's insight on the recent firing of Michael Proctor, and to hear that. So let's just not wait too much longer here. I'm going to bring in, we're going to bring on Todd McGee first. Todd, welcome into Let's Talk Live. How are you?
Good to see you again, Brian.
I think you're frozen.
All right,
there you go.
I'm
Dan
back.
Gallagher, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Todd. How are you?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Mike from the Young Jerks. Wow, look at this panel. Good stuff here. All right. Well, we had a very spicy hearing today. We had a lot of back and forth. I think this is probably the spiciest I've seen in court so far. Obviously, we're just about a week and a half away to probably this trial starting. I know that the defense is trying to extend it. They're waiting for the SJC appeal. And I think I don't know if they had a hearing on that yet, but I think it's coming up soon. And it's just a timing issue with all of this. What do you guys think? I'm going to go to Mike first. What do you think, Mike? Spicy, huh?
About the hearing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of the same. Brennan just being a total jerk. Doesn't want Karen to have any defense. I mean, that's basically everything for him. He's like, these ARCA witnesses are so good, we got to throw them out. The federal FBI agent is so good, can't allow him to even just talk about all the missteps every single way. It's just this guy Brennan doesn't want Karen to have any defense. He's gone after even her lawyers. Like, it's gotten really nasty and snippy already, and we haven't even gotten near a trial. So imagine what's going to happen during this trial. It's going to be wild. And I think Brennan's losing. Like, I think he knows he can't compete with Karen's lawyers and her experts. So I think he's got to do whatever he can to win the case now. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to just pull and tear and scratch. And I don't think it's going to work, even with this judge helping him out. And she does help him out. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think that's what we saw again today.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go to Nan. Nan, first comment on today's hearing. Then we'll finish up with Todd, and then we'll get into some Trooper Proctor stuff, because I know I keep doing that. Stop doing that. I'm just so used to it. It's not Trooper Proctor anymore. It's Michael Proctor.
I can't wait till they do. Alan Jackson, I bet, does that a couple of times.
Probably, yeah.
For effect. Like, oh, you used to be Trooper Proctor, right? Now you're Mr. Proctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And or maybe we call him defrocked for Proctor. I'm gonna do it too. I mean, old habits die hard, but by the way, it's great to see everybody, and thanks to everyone for joining this evening. Today's hearing, wow. Well, I mean, there were two. There was the one for Aiden to procure the contents of Aiden's phone, the data that had been exported. I'm sure there's a better technical term, but I'm tired. It's been a long day. But the data that had been exported out of at least two of his phones and somehow carry it over into the Karen Reed case, which I don't know. I'm assuming, I haven't been on Twitter in a bit. I'm assuming everyone saw the ruling on that, which I'm happy to go over. But yeah, some of that information's getting handed over to Brennan, which I'm very frustrated about. But then as far as the Karen Reed motions in limine hearing, yeah, it was spicy. And after the lunch break, Bev decided to haul ass and get herself in gear. And I even referred to it as speed dating. She was for like 2-minute increments on arguments that probably would take at an absolute minimum, 15 minutes to argue, the best of attorneys. So, and then the issues that were argued, I mean, there's so much that we could go over, and I'm sure, Brian, you'll want to maybe touch upon them as the night proceeds.
Yeah.
But the overarching takeaway that I took from today's hearing is that the prosecution is a bunch of hypocrites, and for individuals, and by individuals, I mean Brennan, Morrissey, McLaughlin, and Lally, who appears to resemble a doorstop nowadays and a waste of taxpayer dollars. All they seem to do is try to paint a picture that they want to give Karen Reed a fair trial, and to be transparent and to get to the truth. And, the unchecked lie becomes the truth. But at the same time, just trying to cut her defense off at the knees, not allow her to present a zealous defense within the bounds of rules of evidence and court rules that she's entitled to present under the Constitution of the United States and the Massachusetts Constitution. And for litigators like myself, we sit here and go, why did we go to law school if this type of shenanigans can go on in a courtroom and Bev allows it? So it was a mess. And there are so many rulings that could have been made faster that are still pending, with a trial date that she won't bump from April 1st till the latter part of April. There is a lot for these attorneys to do, and a lot for them to wait to do until she gets off of her black robe and starts hammering her gavel and making some important decisions.
Yeah, and it's even like you saw like Brennan today with the whole Jennifer McCabe thing, where he's trying to twist that, and AJ's like, you're literally lying right now. Like, he had to get up and correct like 3 spots that he lied in his whole rebuttal. And he's like, if you're gonna talk about this, you essentially, AJ's like, you can't lie. Like, you're literally lying. So again, I think, when I knew Brendan came into this, and just watching him and getting to know him, knowing his past defending Whitey Bulger, I think it's just like, and I keep using this analogy, let's just take a 10-pound bag of shit. We're going to throw it against the wall and see what sticks. I mean, that's basically what he's doing. He's here to throw a monkey wrench into every piece of this trial and just see what they're going to get away with.
Totally agree with you.
Todd, comment on today's hearing. I know you watched a little of it.
Yeah, I did get a chance, Brian, and just kind of watching how Brennan moves. He likes to speak in hyperboles. He likes to bring the drama, and then he'll retract about 20% of it. Yeah. Right? He'll pull it back, or he'll clean it up by saying, "Oh, the defendant has a right to have robust, vigorous testimony from experts." I just see a lot of objections that are going to be coming from the defense. If that's his style and that's how he's going to move in this second trial, the defense is not going to put up with that stuff.
Mm. Well, let's do the. Go ahead, Dan. You're going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say absolutely. And for someone like me, I love hearing how individuals with your background, all of your backgrounds, and people in the chat bring to what they observed today, because people have so many questions, and also people who don't have like legal education sit here and go, "Is this the way our rules are supposed to work?" So I find it very comforting to try to give guidance to people, and also to validate their feelings on this, because I'm almost as confused as all of you are at times.
If you would say that I'm figuring this all out, you're probably crazy, because every even just lawyer or law tuber that I've seen in this, like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I know DUI guy today, I was watching him on Twitter, and he's like, I have no idea what's going on right
now. That's
awesome.
I really like that, because it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not losing my touch.
Let me just get to this, and then we'll transition into Michael Proctor. So Michelle, thank you so much. At $10, she says, "Wow, what an awesome crew tonight! What a treat to have all four of you in one place." And thank you. That's really kind of you. All right, let's talk about Michael Proctor. Thoughts on the firing and the timing of it. That's kind of what I mean, I think we all knew eventually this was going to happen once he started going into the process of his hearings. We had 3 initial hearings, then he finally was announced, 2 days ago or yesterday? He was announced that he was fired.
Yesterday.
Timing is strange. I don't know. Like, I can't figure out like what is going on here about the timing and all of this. And what's everybody's thoughts on this? I'll start with Todd first, obviously, because you're retired Mass State Police. What do you think? What do you think about all of this?
Well, I will share full disclosure. I've never been before a trial board in my career, so
good
that's a good thing. Absolutely. So, let's take a step aside from the Karen Reed trial in Michael Proctor's involvement. In general, all investigations after allegations are going to start with internal affairs investigation. Internal affairs investigation, they don't make any recommendations. They take their findings, and then if it's deemed that there is enough violations of department rules and regulations, then there's a trial board that's set up. The trial board then goes through a process. Let's bring it back to Michael Proctor. At this stage, they had 3 separate hearings. Why did it take so long? That was I think a question that you had, Brian.
Yeah.
I think the political nature, the connection to the trial, the DA's office, I think there was some external impact, some external factors that influenced the timeline of the final decision that Colonel Noble made. As far as the final decision goes, I don't see how Colonel Noble could have made any other decision from the perspective of he testified under oath in a trial as to misconduct in violating department rules and regulations. So how do you bounce back from that? I wasn't surprised with the outcome, and based on Colonel Noble's mission from Governor Haley, get this department back in line. And again, my former agency, I love the state police. I'm always going to be pro state police, but there's some problems that are happening and have been going on, and that's what Colonel Noble's trying to get things cleaned up.
Nan, on the timing of the firing, I mean, do you find this to be weird or odd? I mean, I can't make sense of it. I would have thought, and I think all of us, and I think I've even heard Mike on his channel talk about this, like, I don't know, like we kind of thought like they just kick the can down the road, and then whatever the result is in the Reed case, a press release comes out that day, and they're like, oh, he's been removed and fired. Can you make some sense of maybe the timing on this?
Yeah. Well, I can, based on my experience with police investigative tribunals. I don't know the specific timing of that particular trial board. But what I can tell you is from the bodies that I have been before, and this was 15 plus years ago in my career. Now I'm dating myself, but when I used to have to defend police officers and troopers in their administrative hearings, the bodies that I would present them before, they had to issue their findings within up to 90 days. So, and that's been my experience with a lot of these different bodies throughout the different states that I've been before. I had also been called in other states to consult on those very issues. The timing itself is surprising to me. If you all recall that they didn't take, no action seemed to have been taken publicly as to former or defrocked Michael Proctor until after trial 1.0 concluded. Yeah. Everyone in the Free Karen Reed movement, or those who just don't consider them part of the movement, but consider themselves independent thinkers who think something is up and are waiting to make up their minds, which is perfectly fine by me. Those individuals tend to say at the time they were like, something is suspicious about that. Of course, they waited till after the mistrial to do it. I could not believe that the decision came down as quickly as it did. I thought once the third hearing took place on or about March 13th. It was going to be, weeks and weeks before a decision came down. And that tells me a few things. One, there's probably a lot of public and societal pressures upon law enforcement and its administrative tribunals to render swift judgment and penalties as to, I don't want to call him trooper. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. The defrocked former state trooper. And there is pressure. Healy put pressure on him. And I have to say, kudos to Noble. Sometimes it takes someone strong and independent from New Jersey to get shit done. But in addition to that, I do believe, to kind of echo Todd's sentiments, that sometimes the evidence is just so overwhelming. Like the level of misconduct, the variety of misconduct. It wasn't just missteps in the Karen Reed investigation, but the issue involving Kevin Albert, etc. And I'm guaranteed to you all, it didn't. Those two examples are not all that this administrative tribunal looked at. They probably looked well under the hood and probably, I'm surmising, but they probably looked at his behavior in texting other individuals of a personal relationship with him on other cases to exhibit a pattern. And, with an overwhelming amount of evidence, which I'm surmising, they just said enough's enough because he's dead weight at this point. It's better to cut him loose. It does trigger some interesting legal ramifications. There will be legal ramifications as to whether or not it comes into evidence or not. And it was argued today without briefing on this particular subject involving Proctor. But there is a good video, I guess it wasn't a live. There's a video out there by Brother Counsel that aired yesterday. It was good. It's 24 minutes, and he nails the case law on whether evidence of Proctor's prior bad acts, character, as well as the disciplinary ruling and termination come into evidence. And the Cliff Notes version of that, and I would encourage anyone to watch it, is that the case law, including in Massachusetts, heavily weighs in the favor of Karen. So it should come in. It's material. It's not a fishing expedition. It's not designed to confuse a jury. It's all teed up to be relevant to this case. And I would be very, very upset if Judge Bev does not admit it. I mean, this is 100% relevant, and the probative value outweighs the prejudicial value.
Man, did you pick up in the hearing today? Attorney Jackson had mentioned how they're bringing in a retired FBI witness to be able to talk about proper investigations. This is why this is so significant.
I know, and Todd, I thank you for asking that, because Brian, that is something that is probably relevant to discuss about Proctor today, as well as law enforcement and the investigation itself. I guess it was towards the end of the day. Maybe it wasn't. It was
towards the end. Yeah, I remember. I'm sorry to cut you off. It was towards the end, and they were talking about policy and procedure. It's at the very, very end.
And Mike, if you recall, the first time I was on your show, which seems like forever ago, I said there needs to be a police policies and procedure expert. And I'm not taking credit for this. I'm sure the defense was thinking of this all along, but that's so important to me. And it sounds to me, although I haven't seen the CV of Michael Easter, it sounds to me that Mr. Easter has a robust level of experience on police and FBI related investigations, the processes, the protocols, the standards that have to be applied, being able to offer opinions on the appropriateness of when to close out a crime scene, how to cordon one off. Should you use solo cups to collect biological evidence? Should you be putting them in Stop and Shop bags? Leaf blowers, right? The chain of evidence, all of it. So the addition of an expert who, it sounds to me, just so your audience understands, that the the defense has checked all of the boxes that they would need to check pre-trial to have him admitted as a qualified expert. His CV was produced, a report was produced. So I am really looking forward to that. The only interesting twist, Todd, on Easter is that in Massachusetts, it appears from listening to the argument today that there is not published case law on the use of, I'm just going to call him a law enforcement expert to support a Bowden defense. And a Bowden defense is when a defendant tries to present arguments that the investigation was flawed and steps were missed, etc. There does not seem to be an established precedent of written case law to support using a policies and procedures expert of a law enforcement nature to support that defense. It is, however, very prolific in all of the other states. So yet another reason why, Brian and Mike, your poor state needs to, for as liberal as it is, it needs to come into the future on some of this stuff.
So a lot of antiquated ways.
Yeah, and the vibe that I'm getting is that Judge Bev is on the fence as to whether she's going to allow him, and that's really frustrating. The whole goal of it is to help a jury understand how things are supposed to be done. And Brennan went off on a bunch of tangents, overcomplicating the issue. Look the other way. But long answer short, I'm very, very happy that the defense procured and retained Mr. Easter. And I hope, having checked all the boxes, that he's admissible before the jury at trial and we hear some great things from him.
Yeah.
Before we get into talking about the pension, I know a lot of people are asking about that. We just had a super chat. I'll bring that up in a second. And then I want to kind of go back, if we can circle back around about the impact on the case. I just want to ask Mike, what was your reaction when you first heard this? Were you getting like text messages and messages left and right? And how was that? Were you just like, whoa?
I was happy. I mean, I think the big thing, I think we knew, like, I had Betterow on the night before. It's funny, Nan was talking about the FBI guy. We've been saying that for over a year.
Yeah.
Like, even before the first trial, we were saying we need someone that's police and procedures, like with Betterow. And he said it the night before. He said, like, I think he's going to get fired because they came out, the sister and the mother.
Right.
And the next day he gets fired. So, like, I don't think it was that surprising. The thing that I like is it helps Karen. I mean, it's got to be brought up. And now you're Mr. Proctor. You're not Trooper Proctor. You're Mr. Proctor now, right? Why are you Mr. Proctor? So it's going to come up, and it's going to definitely help Karen. So I'm happy about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm also happy to see, like, these people harassed us, like Trooper Tully, Trooper Buchanan, Trooper Proctor. They knocked on our doors. They showed up at our houses. They sent threats to us. They sent their snitches after me. Like, they were threatening me with witness and wire stuff I didn't even do. And some of it ended up in the Betterow letters. There's so many people that they harassed, like knocked on doors. There's this woman up in Gloucester that I know that she used to have addiction issues. Buchanan was like saying some really weird stuff to her when he showed up because she sent an email or a text message or something to the wife of Proctor, I believe it was. So, like, we can't express our opinion in the state anymore without these, like, the Gestapo showing up.
Like the gray suits. Yeah, Mike. It's like the gray suits. Yeah.
So I was so happy to see, like, at least one of them get a taste of it. And it's so funny, the shoe's on the other foot now. They threaten all of us, and they're the ones that are in trouble now. And I hope that it goes to Tully and Buchanan, because I think that they have a big part in this kind of harassment that they've been doing. And the reason they went after Aiden Carney is because he made fun of them. He exposed them. So they went after him, and then they went after all his friends and all his supporters trying to get us to flip on him. None of us did. Everyone was like, F, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going there. So I was happy about it. Now it's kind of funny, like, go back to even what McDonough said back in the day. I know, it's funny. He said, he said this a long time ago. Now's the time, like, Proctor has to have those thoughts, because now they're pinning it on Proctor. Not pinning it on the girl anymore. This is a limited hangout to me. This is why I feel like the state police did this. This is what Nan was saying too. They were getting so much heat. They had to sacrifice someone. Someone had to go down for this. He's the easiest one. He hopefully he makes everything go away. We'll just say if Karen Reed goes bad, we'll just blame it on Proctor.
On him. Yep.
Everything's getting blamed on him. And let's try to save Tully. Let's try to save Buchanan. Let's try to save Morrissey and all the rest of us Fanning. So that's what it's about for me. And I feel like, good. Now let's see if Proctor's smart enough to go talk to the feds, because that's what he should do. If he wants his reputation back, if he wants any type of life beyond this, he needs to do the right thing. Like it's obvious. Like, I don't think he's smart enough. I don't think he has the guts or the balls. He didn't that day. You know, from the first day, he should have stood up to these people. He didn't. He has another opportunity. I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he has it in him. I don't think his wife has it in him. I don't think the sister does. Look at them. They're up there on WCVB crying and acting like he's the victim and he did nothing wrong. And he's human. He's human. He made a human mistake. What he said was not human.
Right.
Absolutely disgusting. Like, to talk to someone about someone like Karen with the the medical issues, and to say, like, the stuff that he said. I can't think of like a second-year-old, like 2-year-old, you know what I mean? Like they're second graders, like they're supposed to be mean in the schoolyard. I think even they aren't that mean. Even they have some type of level of humanity, the kids in the schoolyard. So I don't know. The whole thing makes me sick, and I'm glad he's gone. And from what I hear, he's not getting a pension, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's great, Mike. It's really, really good stuff. We'll get into the pension in a second. I just want to.
I want to say one more thing. I want to thank him too.
Yep.
Just one for. I'm sorry.
Of course.
I want to thank Michael Proctor for getting me on RKO yesterday too, because that was helpful. Thank you,
there you go.
Mr. Proctor. You did something good for me. You got me on WRKO with Grace Curley yesterday. That was awesome.
Yeah, and if anybody in this chat is not subscribed to Mike's platform, I know you all know him, but please do. He's got a great channel. I admire what he does. He's got a really great channel, and he's just been killing it lately over there. And you deserve all the success, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the possible impacts on the case, and then we'll talk pension. I know I want Todd to talk about Proctor's pension, but so. I was watching that Brother Counsel's video. I was actually watching it this morning, and I thought something was very interesting, a point that he made. He said, well, let's just think about this. Let's throw some scenarios around. How about if the Commonwealth doesn't call Proctor back, the defense doesn't call Proctor, and now we get to closing argument, and you have that end where I don't know who's going to do it, but let's just say AJ gets up, and he starts talking about, and you know what? The Commonwealth in this case was so afraid that they wouldn't even call their lead investigator, and this is why. And he goes through the litany of the text messages and the awful things that he said about, my client. That would be a great way to end. And I think the jury be like, what is going on here? What is everybody's take on this? And do you think the Commonwealth calls Proctor? And if the Commonwealth doesn't call him, obviously, do you think that the defense will call them? I'll start with Mike first, and we'll just kind of rotate around the panel here.
I think the Commonwealth has to call him. If they don't, it's just admitting they have nothing. That how embarrassing this is. I think they have to. Maybe they won't, though. Who knows? But I think the defense will definitely call him if he doesn't get called, because just what you just said, like, I think it's even better to do it with Proctor. The way they did it last time was so impressive. I think it's going to even be better this time, to just make him read those texts. Read them out to him, make him repeat them.
As
what
a
did
normal
you say
guy.
Here? Yeah. So I feel like Jackson asking those questions, or Alessi, whoever they pick, I think it's even better. So I think absolutely the defense will call Michael Proctor if the prosecution doesn't. But I think the prosecution has to. I really do. I don't see how they can go forward with this and not bring up their lead investigator. That just shows so much weakness. So,
yeah, I agree. Todd, I'll go to Todd, and then we'll finish with Nan, and then we'll talk about the pension.
Yeah, I'm 100% with Mike. I don't see how they can't call him, regardless of his new status. You know, I thought in trial 1.0 there was more meat on the bones that they could have taken a position of why didn't you interview? Yeah, I know they touched on it, but I just thought there was more meat on the bone as far as, you know, the occupants in the home. Why weren't they part of your initial list of interviewees? I just think they could have gone a little deeper in that line of questioning. That being said, it's going to be like the first trial. It's going to be a rip the Band-Aid moment. That the prosecution's got to bring him forward. I think it's yesterday's decision is already detrimental to the prosecution's case. If they don't call him, it's going to be that much more amplified as far as you know, how devastating it's going to be, because the defense is just going to tap dance all over it.
Nan, what do you think?
Yep. By the way, I agree with both Mike and Todd. Couple comments so when brother counsel kind of said, well, if the prosecution doesn't call him and the defense doesn't call him, and then in closing arguments, certain things are raised about, I'm paraphrasing, but the things that went wrong with the investigation from a Proctor standpoint, I just want to make a quick comment that was kind of the one piece of what brother counsel was going through where I mildly diverged from him, because if the prosecution doesn't call him and if the defense doesn't call him, a lot of that firsthand evidence concerning Proctor's missteps does not come into evidence, and therefore you can't argue about it at closing argument. So, but with that preface, today, the prosecution amended their witness list to add a few people, one of whom is Michael Proctor. So Michael Proctor is now on their witness list. He's also on the defense witness list. I agree with the esteemed gentleman above me and to one of my sides. I get lost with mirrored imagery here, but I agree that if the prosecution doesn't call him, you are putting chum in the water, and the Alan Jackson or Alessi or Yannetti or even Ms. Little, you could make mincemeat of Proctor on the stand. And with the new decision coming out of the trial board, the administrative body that defrocked him, that will be fodder, if it's admissible, which it should be, for ripe and really prolific cross-examination, because their findings were very tied to the Reed investigation, a rush to judgment, bias, etc. One last point on this, which is if the prosecution does call him, and just like you saw last time, prosecution called him, defense cross-examines him, it's almost a little blessing that there was a mistrial, just a little blessing, because that trial 1.0 presents one additional opportunity to have procured sworn testimony from Proctor and others, you know, Jen McCabe, all the McCabes, all the McAlberts, everyone. They have yet additional transcripts that these witnesses, including Proctor, can't deviate from. So, you know, if Proctor decides he's going to take a different approach to answering questions, or suddenly feign a poor memory, or if he tries to simply take a path that diverges from these were regrettable statements, you know, then AJ is going to immediately impeach him and say, well, didn't you say on this date when I took your testimony in whatever month it was, May or June, X, Y, or Z? So that's the one good thing out of having a mistrial, because it will really commit all of the witnesses, including Proctor, to their prior testimony, and he won't have much room to squirm. And I will say, to Mike's point earlier, while I'm surprised that the decision came down so quickly, from my experience, typically administrative bodies, especially the police-oriented ones, will alert the family ahead of time. So that, to me, once I saw these very foolish and stupid PR stunt of the Proctor family last week, I'm like, maybe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which I have no sympathy for them. And Elizabeth Proctor and Courtney Proctor are on the witness list. So we'll see what they get into.
In the end, that also applies to any depositions prior to the trial.
That's
All
right.
of those original depositions are also in play.
Wow.
Right.
That's right. And I've even had police administrative hearings. Again, this is many, many moons ago, where we're in subsequent depositions in civil litigations. I've been able to request and procure, in some instances, the transcripts from some of those police administrative hearings. And not all instances, it's not a free for all. And some of those tribunals say, no, these were procured in executive session, so you're not getting them. But I've been able on a few occasions to obtain transcripts from those hearings and then carry them over into subsequent lawsuits, etc. I guarantee if Reed is acquitted and she files a civil rights action, her attorneys, whomever represent her for that, they're going to make at least a subpoenaed request to the police or law enforcement administrative trial board to procure the transcripts from the Proctor hearings.
How's it going to be? I'm just trying to imagine this, like Michael Proctor walking back into that courtroom, no longer a trooper, no longer having qualified immunity, and having to get up there as a regular just Joe now, Michael Proctor, the embarrassment that he must feeling. I mean, I know probably, but I don't know, like obviously it didn't seem, he didn't care when he did this. It didn't really seem like he cared when he sat in on Reed 1.0, but I know in his head he might play it off on the stand, but just walking in there like, oh man, I'm just such a bag of shit now. Like I'm mincemeat. They're gonna kill me in here.
Brian,
and have to face that.
Some of the response, the union statement that went out, basically said that Proctor was railroaded and this was too harsh of a decision to terminate him. Well, and they're pointing to other cases where troopers may have had a different disciplinary outcome. Well, what's different now is the Municipal Police Training Council. They are the licensing agent in Massachusetts. That's a fairly, not brand new, but that's a fairly new mechanism that's within policing. So the fact that he would have been decertified, that's another layer to this thing where it hadn't been in years prior.
Right. And I dare say that Proctor feels shame and feels like a, quote, bag of shit, to quote you there, Brian, on a daily basis, whether he's walking into the local Stop and Shop, hitting the dry cleaners, or, educating himself in the custodial arts. He's probably feeling a level of embarrassment that carries with him. And I will say, as someone who I read people for a living, and with that experience, which I'm sure a lot of you have, I felt his embarrassment at 1.0. He was sending off tells and vibes to someone like me that he was quite embarrassed to have to answer those questions. And the irony of all of that is that, and even to hear Karen answer questions about it, I believe to Ted Daniel, she wasn't embarrassed. You have a state trooper who made these statements about you to his friends. They were produced to the feds. They were produced in this case, this Commonwealth case. They were discussed by the media and content creators, and then broadcast over national television and in addition, in a very small courtroom, a very intimate courtroom. And this woman sat in that room and felt absolutely no embarrassment and really just anger and steely-eyed grace. Like, let him hang himself with the noose that he made. So that kind of says something to me. Like, she's not embarrassed about some of the stuff he said. And by the way, I think Aiden Carney has said this. I know I feel this way. Like, hold the text messages aside. I'm sure Todd can relate to this. Like, the texting was bad. It was a really childish, bad use of judgment. Just horrible. And we know, Brian, you and I both think if he did it on this case, he did it on a bunch of other cases.
Yeah.
But
that's just who he is. That's just who he is. And not only him, but the people that were involved in that text stream, it's the same thing. So I have concerns about them too. Like, what are you saying and engaging in with other potential suspects or witnesses or people that you come in contact with? And the scary thing about this is, and this is what I said, his MO in all of this is right away. What did he go to? No nudes yet. So that's what they're looking for inside people's phones immediately when they get them. That's disgusting. That's intimate, private things that you're trying to look. So then what are you going to do? You're going to screen capture it and start sending it out and say, oh, rate it, or what about this, or look at, her body part here, or look at this guy. Like, that's what they're doing. It's disgusting.
And I don't mean to like hijack your show with opinions here. But I will say, like I said before, I think this trial board looked at other cases of his and probably found instances where he did screenshot nudes or inappropriate content and text it out to others. And can we all agree that if Trooper Proctor legitimately spent enough time to scrutinize Karen Reed's phone to look for nudes, if he had taken that time and actually spent it to actually robustly investigate the death of Officer John O'Keefe, free of pride or passion or prejudice or conflict, we wouldn't all be here. It's really disgusting when you think about it. But the fundamental flaws in his investigation as the lead investigator, which even the trial board called him the lead investigator. So the prosecution can't veer away from that now. And I forecast that will become an issue in 2.0. You're going to see Hank Brennan trying to distance from Proctor, whether they call him or not. And you're going to have Yuri Buchanan kind of say, we do these things together. We're a team. We interview in pairs. We do this, we do that. It's not going to fly, especially now that there's the written decision and the personnel order from the trial board. So it's going to make for interesting discussion as the trial starts.
Man, to piggyback on that, I always say, as an investigator, you're a fact finder. And if you're a fact finder, the innocent get more innocent and the guilty get more guilty.
I like that. I'm going to steal that one, Todd.
Go right ahead. No copyright on that.
Wait, Todd, I got to ask you a question real quick. Have you ever served as a law enforcement expert for a party raising a Bowden defense where the allegation in either a criminal trial or a civil action is that the police investigation was faulty? Have you done that?
My work it's in use of force. I'm acknowledged as a use of force expert, and so that's been my area of expertise, but not related to any type of investigative process. But I do opine on police officers' written testimony on their incident report as to whatever wrongdoing that they did, based on what plaintiff is bringing against them, or in defense of a police officer based on allegations brought against a police officer, and they did follow proper procedures in the appropriate level of force. So that's where my expertise has been.
When you answer that way, and I know I saw Kelly Reed somewhere in the chat earlier. I'm just going to say this out loud, Brian, but if anyone with direct ties to the Reed defense is, because they've been tasked to find published precedent in the state to convince Judge Cannoni to allow Michael Easter from the FBI to support Karen's Bowden defense on a faulty investigation. I would encourage anyone who can communicate to the Reed team to make sure that they're also looking at civil actions and administrative actions that are published, where even if the issue is not a Bowden defense on an investigation, even if there was, for example, as Todd was pointing out, use of force, any law enforcement related opinions, if they have been held to be admissible at a trial, whether it's criminal, administrative hearing, that is, or a civil trial, that's where if I was on the Reed defense team, would be focusing so I can produce something in short order to Judge Bev. Back to you, Brian.
Well, I want to do this. I do want to get into the pension. Let's talk about that so we get it all squared up for everybody here, because there's been a lot of rumors about the pension, and we have the best person on the panel that can answer that. And I just want to flip through some of these super chats if we can answer them really quickly. But before we do that, I just want to ask Mike. Mike, anything that you want to add on this subject? If not, we can just go on to the pension.
I think limited hangout. Someone asked what it is. For people that don't know, it's like when there's a bigger issue, a bigger scandal, and they're just basically pointing at like a couple things. And I think even with Proctor on this, like even in what we saw, they just mentioned a couple things: the text messages and the drinking with the Albert brother there. So like I feel like there's so much more. We've all seen it. We all know, like even on his investigation. So I feel like there is a limited hangout in terms of they don't want it to go beyond Proctor, and they're not even focusing on all of Proctor's misdeeds, just a couple of them that are like, you know, the most known kind of. So I feel like there's that angle too. I feel like I could go much further. And I think thank God, like this is what I said on RKO to open yesterday. I was like, you know, thank God for Karen and Aiden, because none of this would have happened. Like Proctor would still have his job if Karen hadn't said, you know what, I'm not taking this. I'm going to go to trial. If she hadn't stood up, and if Aiden hadn't reported this, and this is why they're out to get both of them so much, the entire apparatus is because Karen and Aiden said, I'm not going to take this. I'm not taking this. So, you know, so thank God for them. I just give them props, and everybody, like all of us, like everybody here, everybody in the community, all the people on Twitter, everybody that's been YouTubing. You know, I always bring up Betero. You know, thank God for Betero. Like so many of those folks that have put put Todd, put their reputations on the line. How many law enforcement have called into my show? Like it's ex-law enforcement. It's like overwhelming. So many defense attorneys, civil attorneys, all these people who are very serious, putting their reputations on the line for this. And they were all right. They were all right. Like everybody's right on this. So thank God people stood up, and they deserve all the credit, especially Karen and Aiden, because this wouldn't have happened. Proctor would still be working his job. He'd still be sending those nasty texts about people. He'd still be looking for nudes. He'd still be covering up evidence for his friends. So thank God. Thank God people stood up.
Yeah, I mean, if Karen just sat back and folded, none of this would have opened that whole can of worms. We wouldn't have seen this. It literally would have been it would have been the Wizard of Oz. Like, don't look at the man behind the curtain.
Right.
Well, Karen Reed definitely pulled back the curtain, and we're seeing it now. You know, that's and like, you know, just kind of piggybacking off Mike. I mean, thank God that Karen was strong enough and Aiden is strong enough to just say, no, I'm not standing for this shit, and I'm going to fight back, because we still have Michael Proctor probably, you know, in his position. Dan, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, it's really the two of them. It's almost like lightning in a bottle at the right time, because if she was a weaker individual, if Aiden was, you know, more of a reserved journalist or blogger, whatever, you know, if he didn't have this kind of chutzpah to really push boundaries for whatever people think about his way of going about that, the two of them together, even though I maintain their issues are very, very separate, and the Commonwealth's repeated attempts to group them together and to make it sound like we saw it today, but the two of them separately but together at this point in a timeline, if everything goes the way I am very hopeful it will, this could help revitalize and completely revamp the way law enforcement is done in Massachusetts, the way government overreaches. Hopefully that curbs backwards, and it's just a better, thriving environment without corruption. And I know that sounds very utopian, but you've got lightning in a bottle right now, and content creators everybody just getting the word out, pumping out the messaging. It's just so important. It really is.
Yeah. Let's just try to rip through some of these real quick. And then I do want to get to the pension and square that up because Todd's got a lot to talk about here. So we had Scooter. Of course, we're going to get to this. Thank you for the $5. Says, is Proctor going to lose his pension? I'm going to answer that in about 30 seconds. Sassy Bartender, $5. Thank you. Says, Todd, why would Proctor need Mass State Police detailed 24/7 for over a month? And if on fact, why would Morrissey be visiting yesterday? I don't know if you want to opine on that.
I'm not really following the question. Why would Proctor need MSP, the state police, detailed 24/7 for over a month?
And cop cars at his house. Yeah,
Todd
that's what people are noting.
He might not be aware of it, but there's and I might get this wrong, but there are reports that he's had Massachusetts State Police detail on him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last month. And then I saw at least one picture of, was it Morrissey meeting with someone on a street?
Something like that.
You know, some of it's conjecture, maybe.
Yeah, the PR campaign that his sister and wife went on, they mentioned that they were harassed, and that could have been a protection detail, which, as I think it through, that's what it sounds like it was.
Yeah. Boda Bob, thank you so much for $5. Says, Karen Reed and your team showed Hank who's boss when they walked into the TB hearing. I agree. Jay Beans, thanks for the 5. Says, I love the panel. What a sleazeball move put on by the attorney and the Commonwealth's witnesses list. What are the legal reasoning? I know the why, but what is the legal reasoning? And if you want to, Nan, I'm sorry, if you want to jump on this one real quick.
Sleazeball move to put the attorneys on the I don't know what they're getting at by adding Little, Jackson, and Yannetti to the witness list, other than to say it feels retaliatory to me. I think they were added because the defense released their list, I believe, yesterday, including Michael Morrissey on it. And if it was simply retaliatory, that's like, what grade are we in? Right. It is unheard of to have acting, currently serving attorneys for a party be named on a witness list in a criminal action. In fact, if they were to testify, I don't know what they'd be testifying about. And arguably that violates rules of ethics because a lawyer cannot give testimony in an action. He can't serve as a fact witness in his client's own action. So I have no idea what they're getting at. And it was a sleazeball move. You're absolutely correct.
Nan, let me ask you a question. Could this be a move that I know we heard something about a gag order in this? Could it be kind of a slimy move to, and I
thought about that.
It could be a slimy move in the sense of just trying to get them to not talk to the media.
But they're already gagged. Now they're gagged. But
I wouldn't it be more they're trying to remove them from the defense? Like I said earlier, take her defense away. Take her to defense team. Like that's a bigger thing. Like say, you know what? You can't serve on her defense anymore because now you're a witness. Could that be the case, Nan?
Possibly, but if I were to guess, because when I woke up early today, I said, "What?"
Excuse me.
What do I think? Because I had gotten wind that it might happen. I can't release how I got wind, but I heard it was going to happen, and it did. When it happened, before then, I was thinking about it this morning, saying, if they get added, my suspicion is, one, it's simply to retaliate by putting Morrissey on the list, and two, it's to ask them questions about A, their communications with ARCA, and B, their communications or some of their communications with what's it called? The documentary, the journalists, Ted Daniel, the 2020s, the documentarian
series.
What about what? I also think maybe about Aiden too, because they seem to want to insert him.
Possibly,
they might be like, have you talked to Aiden Carney, Alan Jackson? On what's this email? You know what I mean? I could totally see them bringing Aiden into it too with them.
You've got great instincts, Mike, on this. I'd be interested to hear Turtle Boy's. I don't know if he's still on tonight at 9:00. Sometimes he bumps his show, but Is it tonight? What day
Yeah,
is
he's
today?
Turtle Club tonight.
Oh, Turtle Club.
Yeah.
I think that's at 9:30. But I'd be interested to hear what he has to say about it. But I think you're at least partially right, Mike. You're onto something.
All right, Todd, let's talk about the pension and let's get this all squared up for everybody, because there's been a lot of kind of rumor out there, and you're going to be the man that's going to clear all this up. So the rumor is that he's going to get some, Proctor's going to get some of his pension, and maybe, you know, through this appeals process. You know, how's this all work, Todd? Explain this to us.
Yeah, thank you for pulling up the document. I don't know Michael Proctor's date of hire, but the very first sentence says members of Group 3 hired before April 2nd, 2012 will receive a retirement benefit equal to 60% of their final year's salary after, keyword here, after the completion of 20 years of credible service at any age. Now, this is language that comes up in bargaining that the union would lobby for. But even before this new Group 3 pension policy, the standard has always been completion of 20 years of service. He doesn't qualify for a pension. He hasn't served enough time. So there's no proration. It's 20 years or nothing to get the minimum retirement benefit.
Someone says Proctor has 10 years and 7 months of service.
Even less years.
Yeah.
Well, if that's not a reason for your chat to put like celebratory emojis in it, I don't know what is, because because many times I've seen, Brian, many times where when there is going to be discipline that's handed down to law enforcement and in other administrative avenues, where there will be a negotiated departure, where the troubled or alleged individual says, well, can I stay on until it's X number of years so I can qualify for this percentage of my pension, which I find frankly criminal in my mind, and really offensive that there could be a negotiated departure. So this is just further evidence to me that his conduct of whatever specificity, all of which I can assure you all we don't know, was so egregious for them to say, nope, you're out. So they are no longer a blue family.
And
I got a question for Todd about this.
Yeah.
Todd, optional retirement plans. Like, I used to be a retirement advisor, and mostly UMass, like were my state employees, some of the teachers too, like the high school teachers, some of the town administrators, things like that. We were in the group plans, but they used to have this optional retirement plan where, especially the college teachers, they might bounce around. They might do 5 years with UMass Boston, and then they decide they want to go to Harvard. So they offered them this optional retirement plan that wasn't a state pension that people would choose at the very beginning when they were hired. That's when I would come in. I would be like, oh, optional retirement plan. I'm investing your money for you, instead of doing that state pension. Did state police have that option, or is it just pension or nothing? Because if the optional retirement plan, if you didn't make your vesting, you would at least get that money back. That was a question that was coming up last night. I'm just wondering if he gets any money back. Is there any optional retirement plan for state police, or are they just strictly in the pension, or not vested? That's it.
Good question.
What you're describing, Mike, I actually had that and was able to, contribute to that. That's the difference, though. I don't know what the matching benefit might be in that plan, but the employee would be contributing their own funds, and they would allocate, based on whatever pay period, monthly, biweekly, whatever the case is. So that's money really. I call it a shell game. You contributed to it. If you want to cash it out, you take the penalty for early withdrawal, and it just falls right in those guidelines. But to close the loop on the second page of that document that you had.
Oh, I'm sorry, Todd.
Brian. No, that's okay. The second page references members of Group 3 hired after April 2nd, 2012. That's probably Michael Proctor's case. It's a slight difference in the language as far as the percentages go. But again, the optimal word here is after the completion of 20 years of credible service at any age.
Yeah, I'll post this up on Twitter, and I'll post it on my Facebook page so people can grab it and take a look at it after if you want to kind of look over it. And I appreciate Todd supplying this. and going through it as well too, because it gives some clarity as to like what the hell is going on, because everybody's like, what's going on with his pension? And Todd, when he told me, he's like 20 years. It's funny that you guys were just talking about that optional retirement plan. The way I was thinking about it, it's like a 401k match, right? You're kind of putting money into it, they're matching it, and like you said, Todd, if you decide to pull it, you're going to take a penalty, but you get maybe something out of it. That's kind of the way I look at it.
And it's a lump sum number. There's no monthly benefit that you can leverage like a pension. It's a completely, entirely different type of a product.
Let me just rip through some more of these. There's some more Proctor questions. So Beb's Bias, 5 pounds. Thanks for checking in over across the pond tonight. We appreciate that. Any possibility that Proctor could cut immunity deal, even only to say that he knows the taillight was planted? Great show tonight. I'll just throw it out. Whoever wants to take a shot at it.
My advice to him. My advice. He should. I mean, that's what he should do, but I don't think he will.
It's not going to get him reinstated, even if he does it.
Right. Yeah, that's important. That's an important point too, Todd, because nothing he does, if people say, oh, he's going to flip, or people have said Farwell is going to flip on the Birchmore matter, if Farwell knows information that could have bearing on, for example, the Karen Reed case, etc. But the answer to your question, Bev's Biased Beratements, which I love your handle, is that when there are deals for immunity and there's different layers of immunity, there's usually the investigating bodies won't give you will not take partial information from you. They're going to sit you down for a proffer interview, and they are going to essentially give you a colonoscopy and find out every single thing you know. So he couldn't just give them the tail light was broken and, hey, what can I get? He'll have to sit, hopefully with an attorney if he's smart, tell them everything he knows or everything he did. Maybe that they would show him some mercy, but not much. And honestly, Proctor, now that you have a lot of free time on your hands, I would encourage you to spend that time thinking about doing that and actually doing it, so you could save all of us and all of the taxpayers a lot of time and money. And by us, I mean the Free Karen Reed movement, all of the constituents of it, and the taxpayers of Massachusetts. So, but it's a good question.
Man, do you make it a book? Let's play that scenario out. I would think that he would be exposing himself to more wrongdoing if he did take that approach.
He would, but that's where immunity comes in. So, for example, like he may say he could sit for a proffer, answer to whatever body investigates him. I dare say it's the feds, and I also believe the federal investigation has not closed. But with that said, he would sit for that interview, answer all the questions asked of him, and he could face future risk or expose himself to more liability in the future if he's not 100% truthful. And there's a whole body of case law on that, and it's actually getting very, very popularly discussed in the Adelson case down in Florida, pertaining to the death of Danny Markell, the law professor, back in 2014. In terms of whether or not the ex-wife had anything to do with his death as a co-conspirator. But usually you only get so much immunity, and you have to be very truthful during your interview before you can comfortably say, okay, I'm not going to get in any more trouble. I do think, though, on a very superficial level, if someone were to flip, in any of these matters, be it Birchmore, Enrique Delgado Garcia, or in the Reed case, which I don't think is likely, but if someone were to flip, I think that people may seriously fear criminal consequences moving forward, like significant criminal consequences. So I think at this point, they're all just, pot committed, as I say. It's just easier to proceed forward to save your own neck. Maybe his termination will change that analysis for him, or maybe he'll get pressure from his spouse, who thinks that he was only human. by sending inappropriate texts. We'll see.
That's a good point.
One of the cases I was following is the Tupac case. And you got this guy, Keefe D, who got federal proffer, but then he started talking on like podcasts, and now the state is going after him. So like, I wonder about that too, Nan. Like, if he ever did take a federal deal, and now Norfolk County's coming after him, could that happen? Is that possible? He gets state charges, even if he had a federal deal?
Yep. Yeah. And there's another case. What is it? Is it the Birchmore case, right? The maybe I'm wrong. It's been a long day for me, but in Birchmore, the investigating bodies are feds, right?
Yes.
I think they are feds.
Now they are.
It is now. Yeah, it is now.
Like
state police too.
You are correct.
So the state police had a chance, screwed it up. Now it's the feds. But since the feds brought their charges, the state never came in, as far as the last I heard, and filed their own state charges at this point.
That's my understanding.
Apparently they're investigating. They have like the AG. She did something. Remember that, Ryan? Yeah. There was something going on with the AG. But I mean, I think they may do something, but they haven't. You're right. They haven't done anything.
It's languishing.
It's how our AG works. She puts statements out and says, we're looking into it. And then we wait years to get our answers, just like she did with Enrique. And then finally, thank God that Worcester Senator Moore and his colleagues had to step up and say, hello, we want some answers here. Let's get the ball rolling again. And again, if anybody hasn't watched that live, we had kind of a joint live here, simulcast on Young Jerks and my show. You can watch it on either respected channel. It was maybe 2 weeks ago, Mike. That was a great live.
But I had bad audio intro. I'm sorry about that. Just skip the first couple minutes where my audio is bad.
Okay, let's just kind of get through these real quick. Bart says, will Bev have heavily restricted time on closing arguments again? First trial should not allow enough time. AJ had far more, but he was rushed. We don't know. I don't know. Yeah, she probably will. Yeah, but they'll be better prepared this time around. I'm sure they're going to prepare for an hour. Let's see. Britta Mad Hatter, thank you so much for being a member of 8 months. Said, I didn't even recognize you at first. Brian has his hair. Yeah, I grew my hair back. Apparently it's hair plugs. That's what the trolls say. I wouldn't even waste my money because my head has been shaved for 6 years. I would just shave my head again. But I just grew it kind of out of curiosity. I want to get it as long as Mike's. But it's gonna take a while.
You're gonna do the flip and start doing Jimmy imitate me.
And then what I'll do is I'll do like a left, and then we can do opposite flips. We can wear black.
Well, we can be married, Brian and Mike married.
You can be the Young Jelly twins.
I'm kind of morphing into Mike here. If you kind of look,
I don't know if my girlfriend can deal with that. She might be upset. I can't deal with two of these guys. No way.
Bev Pius Bunion $5 says, hey, was I the only one that was irate when Brennan had the balls to say discovery deadline has passed? That guy has some nerve. No, I think we're all there.
I reacted the same way. That's unbelievable. He doesn't realize how much of a hypocrite he is.
I agree. NA Dude, thank you so much for the 10. Says, I'm not a student of law, and of the previous witness, if they are on the stand, can they plead the fifth on the second try? Yes.
Question.
Yeah. And that's kind of curious too. I know a lot of people have been saying, would Proctor get up and just plead the fifth this time around? Yeah.
Yes. He should, by the way.
Didn't Furman OJ plead the fifth at one point?
Did.
Yeah.
He did. And, the jury, even though they were instructed not to, they drew their adverse inferences from Furman pleading the fifth. So I do believe that O.J. Simpson killed his ex-wife and Ron Goldman. But the fact that he had made incredibly inappropriate statements about an ethnic group of racial group of people.
Yep.
And because he did that and then lied about it, it's like the cover-up's worse than crime.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that weird, the parallel kind of universe we're in here?
Very similar.
Case in this case. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And a pretty good, it wasn't perfect investigation, a pretty good investigation on the Nicole Brown Simpson murder, and there were flaws to it. But that, which reminds me, Brian, send me information on that documentary you saw on Netflix about the OJ.
It's so good.
I know. I was searching, and there's a few, and I don't know which one.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
But anyway, a pretty good investigation results in an acquittal of someone who likely killed his spouse and another because of a variety of reasons, including a lead investigator pleading the fifth on the stand.
The main sticking point, and this is where I tried to say in this, is let's flip that into the Reed case. And I was kind of talking about this, and this is my point. What the defense team did was said, all right, and you're going to see it in the documentary when you watch it, Nan. They said, well, what are the things that we can use here? Well, they went out and got all that. They said it was like 8,000 hours of media footage, actually filming them when they were data collecting. So evidence collecting, I'm sorry. So they had all this footage, and they went through and they went, all right, let's pick all this apart. Was he wearing gloves? What was the evidence bags they were putting it in? Was things handled properly? Did they know, how to preserve blood evidence? I'm like, the Reed team needs to do that. Let's bring up some videos this time around and really hammer this home to the jury that all this shit is tainted. You have Stop and Shop bags. You have leaf blowers. I mean, Nan, you were talking about this earlier. Yeah. That would be my big sticking point, all this, that all this evidence is contaminated, this DNA evidence or whatever it is. And I go back to the acronym that we've been using on these shows. I think I might have said it first, but KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Not that I'm saying they're stupid, but that's
there's no proper chain of custody. They left the paper bags inside the garage.
Yeah.
On this point though, it's important because this also and paranoia or paranoia. Yes. I don't have my glasses on. Brian's going to get to your question, but in one quick point, how amazing was it when they were arguing the motion on the FBI investigative expert Easter, where Hank went down some rabbit hole saying, well, if this expert comes in and gives his subjective opinions, which by the way, all experts' opinions are subjective, then I'm going to have to call my fact witnesses back and they're going to have to give testimony. Or maybe I'm going to have to get my own expert or someone from the Massachusetts State Police to come in and say that the investigation had no problems to it. And Alan says, do it.
Yeah, bring it on. Let's do it. From the Canton Police or the State Police, we'd love you to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And Todd, that makes me think of you because I know with your background in law enforcement, like I do believe that there is a population of law enforcement up there who aren't speaking up to the deficiencies in this investigation, but believe that it was defective and deficient. They're just not going to be the person to stick their neck out,
I've got several friends that are in confidence have expressed that this is not a good look. It shouldn't have gone down this way. They hold the same position as we do, but again, for one reason or another, they're gonna hold back their opinion on a public platform.
Yeah, and I respect it because I know that a lot of things go into that.
Yeah,
They're told not to. They're told not to publicly speak. I mean, that's so.
Yep.
A lot of them will get in trouble. It's funny. We did have one New York cop call in who was employed. He's one of Bettero's friends.
Oh yes.
Even that was wild. Like that was like, wow, you kidding me? Someone who's actually, but it's in New York, right? I mean, that would be different in Massachusetts if it was a Boston cop or something.
The similarities are an investigation's an investigation. The standards and protocols will vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But state-of-the-art investigative steps, policies, and procedures, it's really exactly what I just said. It's state-of-the-art. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that you shouldn't be collecting biological evidence in solo cups using leaf blowers or leaving possibly noteworthy apparel that the decedent was wearing at the time of the accident in the back of your car for 2 weeks before you, without any appropriate chain of custody protocols followed. So there's a lot of uniformity in investigative processes.
That's really, I'm telling you, I think that's really where they have to hammer some of this stuff home. And, we even saw that again in that documentary when they had the forensic expert, was it Yang? I think his last name is Yang, if I remember. And they're literally watching him collect evidence off the scene. And then all of a sudden, and now his name just slipped the lead attorney for O.J. Simpson, Johnny Cochran he goes, is that a proper evidence collection? And he's just frozen. And he had, and I'm telling you, this is where they really have to hammer this stuff home. And I think really focus on that. And, how the contamination is going to be big in this. I'm like, it's right there in front of you guys. I know they touched on it a little bit, but hammer it home this time.
And I think the attorney who did all of the questioning of the law enforcement as to their appropriateness of their measures in OJ was Barry Scheck. Yes. I believe he did it, or it was either Barry Scheck or the other guy.
No, it was Scheck. Yeah.
And the point is, going back to what happened today with the argument, if Alan Jackson, for example, were to ask, I don't know, let's just say Yuri Buchanan, is that the appropriate way that you should have interviewed witnesses? Or should you have had body cam on? Should you have written it down? Let's assume they asked Proctor, shouldn't you have taken a picture of the taillight when obtaining the car in Dighton and bringing it? They're all going to say yes. They're going to say, yeah, it's fine. It depends on the circumstances. A blizzard was coming. We initially didn't know what we had. That's why you need a law enforcement expert who can come in and say, this is how you get shit done.
Yeah.
So I wish that Judge Bev would have given them more time to appropriately argue that, especially in light of the strong result that will happen if he's allowed in. If Easter's testimony comes in, it's going to blow open the entire look of the defense of this case.
Yeah, they needed that strategy in trial 1.0, and maybe a missed opportunity, but at least now they're thinking along those lines.
Agreed.
Well, she didn't want to give more time because we have a trial to get to. It's on April 1st, Mr. Jackson, and I need my weekends too. So
you got time left over today, and they had extra time today.
Yeah, they did have extra time. That's right.
They had like an extra hour. They could have kept going. So she does that all the time.
Yeah.
And then she like a couple of hearings ago, she ended it early because she had her grave concerns. It's like such a joke. She's such a.
I agree.
And you look at it, it's like April, May. If this goes to June, you know what that means, Mike. It's cottage time. We got to be out at 4:00. We got to get out of the courthouse.
Got to get to the beach.
Yes, the beach.
I love how you guys say it, cottage. We say cottage. Cottage here. Cottage.
You talk funny down there.
This has to stop. This has to
stop now.
Oh, no. All
right, let me try to rip through some of these. Maybe we can do kind of 20-second answers on these. I appreciate the $5. So we found out today Yannetti's not doing the opening. What do you think? I'm shocked, to be honest. His opening was really powerful. Yeah, I think it's just to mix it up a little bit this time. You might see Alan Jackson, maybe Alessi. I mean, maybe Liza comes in. I know I'm throwing all the names out there, but we don't know. We really don't know the strategy. But,
I did a poll when this came out on my feed today, and it was like, who do you think it will be? And it was like Jackson, number one, but Alessi, too. Like that was close. It was close. So I think most people think it's going to be either Jackson or Alessi, but who knows? And some people did vote for Liza Little. So any of them would be good.
For sure.
I don't know. I think it could be either one of them.
You think it's going to be Jackson? Yeah.
And I don't think I think it's not Yannetti just to like mix things up and to make it look different. They're going to want to make this defense not look like a cookie cutter repeat of 1.0 down to the very last detail. more witnesses, more aggressive questioning,
another attorney.
Right.
Even
attorney. If it's just either one of them, any one of them could do it fine, but we're not going to have Yannetti do it just to make it look different.
Yeah. Yeah. Kelly, thank you so much. $5. This great panel. Loving the red lipstick on you, Nan. It looks great. Buzz. We have Kaza D. $20 says all parties on the defense today were on fire. I love seeing them push back on all of the judges and Brennan in both hearings. I agree. Glamassus, thank you so much. Look at this. Member for 17 months and a moderator. Thank you for supporting LTL. I appreciate that. Spanky wants them to authenticate Karen's statement on Dateline, etc. Spanky doesn't authenticate anything in his presence. That might bite Spanky.
Agreed.
Let's see. Calico 26, $2 says, can Proctor even be a cop again? A PI or a gun owner? Todd? Everybody's shaking their head. No.
Not in Massachusetts. Yeah, with the post commission, he'll never get licensed again. Certified is what they call it.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, Mike. But that would follow him if he wanted to go over the border. That would follow him. Gun owner. These weren't criminal charges. These were administrative charges. So it doesn't impact the Second Amendment.
John says McAlbert's employ Proctor for life or he vanishes. J Beans, thank you. $5 says Nan, if you were Proctor's attorney, oh, this is good. How would you have you been to advise he testified? Plead the fifth, candid statement. Don't feed the trolls. We want to hear you. That's why we show up.
Oh.
Good question. Very good question.
J Beans. If I were Proctor's attorney and 2.0 trial 2.0 was approaching, and now that we know there is he's on both the Commonwealth and the defense witness list, I would advise him to plead the fifth on every single question asked of him. But if he disagreed with that advice, I would tell him answer consistently with how you answered questions in 1.0 so you don't face perjury charges or make yourself look worse or more evasive. And that's how I would do it. Yeah.
my friend Lauren says Proctor's going to start working at D&E and making mediocre chicken parms.
That reminds me, Brian, I want to say Lauren DC reached out to me and I don't know how you did, Lauren, or where you did, but it got buried somewhere in social media. So if it was you, can you please reach out again? I'm not ignoring you. I've been trying to find that message you sent. Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's great. Jody, thanks for 10. Said just jumped on. Not sure if it was asked already. How can Brennan call Karen's attorney as witnesses? How does that work? We did answer that. If you want to go back and rewind, I don't want to be rude. I'm just trying to get through some of these, but we did answer that. You just have to scrub back during the show.
It's in the stream.
Yeah. Jam Cracker, thanks for the one gifted. I appreciate that. M20 says, I want to thank Todd for his service and for being an honorable man. Men like you will bring us some sense of comfort, and Mass State Police, God bless you.
Thank you, Ann.
I echo that.
I've spent a lot of time with Todd off stream, and what you see of him here is the same way that he is off stream. He's a very tall, kind, gentle man, and has a lot of knowledge and insight to a lot of things that we talk about on this channel. And I appreciate that him and I have started a friendship. He's very respectful, and I always lean on him in the time of need, or if I have some questions that my voice cracked. Oh, Peter Brady. If I have some questions that I need answered to the law, he's usually the first person that I reach out to. So
and it also helps that we're neighbors.
Yes, and we do. We live very close together.
You guys live close? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Orphan, thank you for the 2. Says Nan, when are you going to start your own channel? You have fans. Let's see. Orphan.
I don't have time to nurture one, but thank you.
Nan says, can you explain Bowden? We did do that. You're just going to have to go back through the stream. Let's see. I'm just a girl in the world. 10. Thanks for the great panel. Thanks for your insight. Thank you for the 10. Motions and CPA, $10 says Brennan has zero self-awareness and has secondhand embarrassment when he speaks. That's super odd because he has no firsthand embarrassment. $2 from AJ. Fantastic guest. We love you. Well, we love you being here. We appreciate you. Southern Mom, $5 says, if Easter is not allowed, could Karen Reed's team bring in policy and procedures from the involved agencies? I'll let you opine on that.
The answer is yes, and I imagine they've produced them already. So these would have to be authenticated and probably would be authenticated by some of the Commonwealth's own witnesses. But yes, if Easter is not permitted, which would be disastrous, the policies and procedures have been produced, and the defense will have to shift their planning and get them under the noses of Buchanan, Tully, Fanning, Guarino, all of them. And it'll happen. Those will come in. Maybe not the documents themselves, but the principles in them.
I would add additionally, any training, when I was in the fire marshal's office, I went through evidence collection school, photography school for evidence collection. So those types of training records are also in play.
Agreed.
Before we wrap up here, can we just play I just want to play, because I loved it, Spicy Yannetti today. I just want to play that little back and forth with him and Brennan when they're talking about ARCA. And it was such a good exchange back and forth. And it's nice. I love the fact that, you know, we're seeing a little bit more of this now, because it's come down to, in my opinion, that they're just not going to take shit from Brennan anymore. I think they've been, you know, analyzing him and watching him over the last, what's maybe a handful of hearings here. They've got a gauge on this guy, and they're going to start firing back. They know he's all talk and no bite, no pun intended. And I think they're going to really get them. And someone just asked in the chat here, how do we feel about this trial the second time around? I feel great. I think this team is going to be, Karen's team is going to be ready. I don't think there's going to be any curveballs, but I think they're going to throw the Commonwealth a bunch of curveballs. I'll let everybody answer that when we wrap up. But I do want to play this really quick and hear this exchange back and forth.
Not my words.
All right. So we're going to break.
Oh, this is the break.
We've got a lot of ground to still cover. I suggest that we take the personal attacks completely out of this. Hold on. Both sides. I want to get through these motions today. If we don't, I'll bring you back tomorrow. I'll bring you back Monday. Let's get through these motions. Leave all the attacks, all the falsehoods, all of that. Leave it all aside. Let's focus on the motions and get through this. So I'll see everybody at 2 o'clock.
Your Honor, if I could say one more thing.
Wrong clip, but
as the court ponders this last issue,
I'm not even thinking about it for the next hour. Let's leave. Let's leave it. Yeah.
That's so disrespectful.
Look at Jackson's face. Just crazy.
That is so disrespectful.
Yeah, I agree. This is third party culprit. And of course, I love that he called out the 3 names again today: Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Colin, and literally said, and I think in that he said, we may have something to the point that evidence points to them. And I was like, oh, we may hear a little more here.
Yeah, that's the sidebar that I wish I could have heard.
Yeah.
Who knows what they dropped there? It seemed like they I almost wonder if it's not a new info. It almost seemed like that. It was interesting. That was very interesting.
If we have time, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Brian. In addition, though, you know, without knowing more, I am taking the opinion based on my understanding of Massachusetts law that Yannetti did not have to identify them. He did not have to, and he certainly doesn't have to provide a roadmap for all of how he strategically wants to try to prove that they were the culprits. And this issue came up a little bit differently before 1.0, but I was happy to hear him name Brian, the Bryans and the Colin.
Yeah.
But I was also saddened and frustrated that Karen was forced to kind of give up a strategy and now has to produce every bit of documentary evidence, or at least a lot of it, so she can map it out for Judge Bev, which takes the gust out of her sails. And, you know, she loses the element of surprise. It's not trial by ambush, but it's a little frustrating for me. I'd be interested to hear what Bettero's thoughts on that are. He may have tweeted about it.
Nan, let me ask you a question. You think it was a little showmanship to kind of throw it out there and say, we know who it is, just to kind of throw it out there, considering all the BS they went back and forth with today? Because that was towards kind of the end. And Yannetti was pretty fired up that day, today.
I do. I am not sure, based on my read of attorneys, I do not believe that David Yannetti was prepared to give those names. I feel like it had been a long day. He knows the names. The defense team knows who they think were involved. But I think by that point and level of frustration reached, that he just hit a point where he's like, well, she asked me a question and I'm going to answer it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think he wanted to give those names.
Let's hear the clip real quick, and then we'll end on ARCA, and then we'll just do a quick wrap, maybe 5 or 10 more minutes here. And again, I want to thank my panel for this. Is such a super panel. You all add great insight and expertise to what you do. I want to thank Mike again for joining this evening. If you haven't checked out his channel, you need to find him on Facebook, YouTube, and X, his 3 major platforms, and you can just find him at The Young Jerks. Retired Mass State Police Todd McGee and his expertise, and then the new we call a lot of people call you the female Bettero, but we have attorney Nan Gallagher, and she's been so great and gracious to do these panels with all of us. All right, let's just pull this up. I want to just hear Yannetti in his own words, and then we'll go to the quick wrap up at the end with ARCA.
So the potential third-party culprits that we have identified are Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin Albert. I have, evidence with regard to each. I'm sensitive to the fact, Your Honor, that, and I have a lengthy argument prepared detailing the evidence against each of them.
Do you want to put it in writing?
Well, I'm just sensitive to the fact that the court is seeking not to, pollute the potential.
So we can do this over here.
It's up to Your Honor.
Over here.
He was spicy today. He was fired up. And I think this might have where that kind of back and forth. We'll hear a little bit of this about ARCA.
Your Honor,
That's where he gets interrupted.
Certainly have.
And he goes, "You interrupted me."
When it comes to what jury should be allowed to hear about how the ARCA witnesses became involved in this case. Mr. Brennan speaks about the heart of our motion. The heart of our motion is that the Commonwealth wants to hide the truth from the jury. The defense wants the jury to know the truth. In the first trial, this court disallowed the ARCA witnesses from testifying about who hired them. We were therefore forced to ask oblique questions, trying to show the jury that we didn't hire them, that we didn't provide them with information, that we didn't influence their opinions and conclusions. But we weren't allowed to tell the jury that the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, hired them. So the jury was left to speculate about how they became involved. I think the court will agree that it's ironic in a way that the court excluded mention of the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office because the court rightly did not want the jury to speculate about a federal investigation. But by excluding mention of the federal government having retained ARCA, the jury was left to speculate incorrectly about how they became involved.
They were also instructed more than once not to speculate, right?
But the point of the fact of the matter is, Your Honor, they did speculate. At least one juror thought that ARCA was hired by Ms. Reed's car insurance or home insurance company. And think about the implications of that. If Ms. Reed's insurance company had hired ARCA, they would have had a motive to absolve Ms. Reed of responsibility. That clearly would have adversely affected their credibility in the eyes of the jury, and unfairly so.
Let me ask you a question. If I allow, and I'd be very surprised if I did mention that this was a federal grand jury and that the federal, how does that not open the door to all the testimony that Mr. Brennan just brought up that he'd be able to get into?
Okay, so first of all, and this is later in my argument, we're not asking.
So no, could you answer that now and then I'll let
I'm
you say
trying to,
everything.
Your Honor.
Oh,
If-
you
if-
just
if
said
I
it's
can-
late. Hold on, you just said it's later in the
I
argument.
know, but I said you interrupted me, and I was just about to say, but I'll address it now.
Okay.
Yeah, bring it.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
Look at Nathan.
We are not asking
Look at
that the
Turtle
jury be
Boy.
told that there is or ever was a federal investigation. That phrase, federal investigation, never has to be part of this trial. We're only asking that they be told that the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office hired these witnesses. That's it. We don't have to speculate about an investigation, whether there was an investigation, whether there was a federal grand jury, what that grand jury did, what that grand jury considered, nothing. That's not what we're asking. And the problem here is that without knowing that the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office retained ARCA, the jury's left to speculate about how they became involved, and it all inures to my clients, to prejudice my client. Thinking that they were potentially hired by an insurance company of Ms. Reed really perverts the truth in this case. It's unfair to my client, and it's the opposite of the truth. There was another juror that speculated that the ARCA witnesses were just attention seekers, looking to make a name for themselves in a high-profile case. That's also the furthest thing from the truth. They had never heard of this case before the Department of Justice called them. That's how the Department of Justice wanted it. They wanted clean experts who would take a sober and strictly scientific look at the evidence. The federal prosecutors did not want them to be tainted by news reports or opinion pieces. And recall that the Commonwealth attacked ARCA on cross-examination for the discovery that they were not provided.
Okay. I just want to play too much longer here, but I wanted to get to that point when they had that argument back and forth. And my whole thing is, she is so afraid to let this federal, to take it to the level of federal investigate, because that is the case. That is the Karen Reed case. ARCA is the answer and all. They are so afraid of that. How do you think this is all going to shape out, Nan? She's not. She even said, "Oh well, I probably not going to let it. Yeah, probably not going to let it in." They know this is the case.
Does anyone in the chat want me to just go up there and be the judge on this matter? No, I'm kidding. I kind of slightly resemble her with my current haircut. But anyway, I understand why it's not prudent at times for there to be a reference to like a federal investigation. Okay. It can be prejudicial to the Commonwealth or to any party. I understand that. And there are rules of evidence on that point. However, what Yannetti was proposing today was limited, reasonable, tailored, which would be the appropriate legal way of saying it, narrowly tailored to address the jury confusion issue. The jury was confused. Now, you have Bev spitting saying, well, they were specifically instructed not to be confused. No shit. Pardon my French, Todd. Yeah. I don't know you well enough, Todd, to drop profanity. But being that you're law enforcement background, I have a feeling you're not a stranger to it. But the point is, what Yannetti is proposing is simply saying, hey, it was the Department of Justice. It wasn't an insurance company. It wasn't Turtle Boy. It wasn't anything else other than Department of Justice. And I forget, he might have mentioned a different agency. Mm-hmm. That's it. They don't have to open the proverbial legal door. So how's it going to play out? She's going to deny the motion, and she's going to rely upon the jury instructions and let the next jury possibly speculate, as all juries do, as to who's the true retainer of ARCA.
So frustrating.
If that happens, if the judge will deny this motion, which was reasonable, narrowly tailored, etc., then I would encourage the defense team to sit down for 15 minutes in a war room and say, let's craft together the best possible questions we can to get to ARCA and to try to elicit, to try to signal ethically to the jury that they're not with an insurance company or they're not associated with a journalist or anything of the like.
Yeah. Mike, final words. What's your thought? How you feeling going into 2.0?
Feel good because I feel like this is going to be a stronger defense. They got more experts. They got everything we wanted, everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Police procedure expert. They just have a stronger defense this time. So I feel like they're going to go all out. There's not going to be an abbreviated defense like last time. So I feel better. As far as, what we were just, mentioning about Bev and all that, I feel like so many times she feels like the state has more rights than Karen Reed.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me crazy. It's like Karen Reed has the right to have a defense. She has the right to have juries not confused about where this evidence is coming from. So it just drives me crazy. All the legal mumbo jumbo, just on a basic human decency level, she should be able to defend herself with the facts. The facts are the feds hired these people. They were independent from the beginning. They didn't know who Alan Jackson was when they wrote their report. So like all the stuff that Bev and Hank have been doing with this ARCA, it makes me mad. It really makes me angry because it's like they're trying to do a PR campaign and the judge is in on it. It feels like It really feels like they're trying to taint the jury pool and the judge is a part of this. Like I used to think that Judge Bev was bad at her job. Then I started thinking she's biased. Now I'm at the point where I really think that something is funny with her because of the way she acts in situations like this. It's like, you got to let it in, Judge Bev. The jury felt a certain way last time. It's obvious. She pretends she doesn't pay attention to the news and the info. She's not watching these shows, but she knew Michael Proctor got fired, didn't she, today? She said that. So she's obviously following what's going on. So that's my final thoughts. I'm excited, but I'm frustrated by Hank Brennan. I'm frustrated by Judge Bev, but I'm enthused about Karen Reed and this movement and everybody involved in it, and her defense team. Phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to it.
I agree. Todd, final thought.
Yeah, real quick, Brian. I've got to think that the defense has analyzed over and over trial 1.0, and they're going to iron out all the wrinkles, things like improper verdict slips, things like appropriate jury instruction, and they're going to be ready for those types of things this time around. And to Mike's point, I think their list of witnesses are going to be that much stronger. It's something where all the witnesses coming together in support of the truth. It's all going to play itself out, and it's going to benefit Karen.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said a couple minutes ago, I just think that they're going to be ready for this one. And I think Robert Alessi coming in on the team is going to be a phenomenal matchup with Hank Brennan. I think they're just going to battle back and forth. And I think that's why they brought him here to do that. And he's been doing a great job in these hearings so far. It's nice to see Jackson was up there again today. We got a little bit of Yannetti and Liza. And it's just kind of showing like you're going to have to deal with all four of us. The Commonwealth's going to have to deal with all four of us. So I think they're well prepared. I think they're going to throw some curveballs at the Commonwealth, and we'll just have to see how this all plays out. But I think it's going to be much better this time around. I feel confident. I really do. I think she has a phenomenal team, and I know they'll be ready. So with that being said, I want to end tonight's show. I want to thank my panel of guests to be here. We have Mike from the Young Jerks. Again, check him out on all three platforms, Facebook, X, and especially on YouTube. He has nightly shows around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He's got phenomenal guests over there, a podcast that I strive to be makes me push harder and want to be. So you're doing a phenomenal job over there, Mike. I've enjoyed buddying up with you and doing a lot of these panels together. So I appreciate your time and your expertise in all of this. Todd McGee, my friend down there in the lower corner, retired Mass State Police, many years of experience, worked at the Mass State Police Academy for quite a while. Todd, tell us a little bit about your business and where they can find you on the web.
Yeah, LinkedIn, best way to find me, Todd McGee. I've got a strong presence on LinkedIn, and you might see me in your 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock news feed with all that's going on.
Yeah. And then down in the other lower corner there, we have the newly joined panelist here, attorney Nan Gallagher, Law Fiero. She's been checking out a lot of these shows, and it's awesome to have such just a great person come on and give those expertise on these panels. And she's been doing a lot of support and spreading herself around to all these amazing creators. Nan, where can they find you? You're on X and Facebook. And if you want to drop your law practice too, please do.
Thank you. By the way, Todd, please find me on LinkedIn, because I just looked up your name and like 17 Todd McGee's popped up. But anyway, yeah, I'm on Twitter under Law Furio. I'm on Facebook. There's like an official page for Nan Gallagher. Anyone like who sends me friend requests to my special private page, sometimes I don't accept those. Or you can find me at the Nan Gallagher Law Group in Morristown, New Jersey, and Manhattan. And if you do anything to affect my business, I'm coming for you.
Well said. Well said. Hopefully we can do this again in a couple of weeks. This was a phenomenal panel, and I enjoy all of you. And let's do this again. I think it was great, and the audience loved it. So with that being said, thank you to all my panel guests, all the viewers that watched tonight. If you haven't subscribed, please do like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. And thank you for moderators for modding and all the people that contributed tonight via Super Chat. I really do appreciate it. And I did get one $5 PayPal, so thank you so much for that. But that being said, I'm Brian. A lot of people call me BLT, but I'm LTL. And I'll talk to everybody soon. We're going to hit the outro. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.